Typically, one-tricks are the best players that you can find at their champions. As a result, a lot of the time, I recommend for people to learn from one-tricks. If they're the best players at those champions, then they're going to be the best resources to learn from. However, there are some things that one-tricks do that you should be avoiding. So today, we're going to be covering these things. Avoiding these things is going to help prevent you from forming bad habits that will inhibit you from climbing. So make sure you smash the like button and be sure to get your GameLeap premium sub. We're posting up to 5 new challenger videos every single day over on our website. Having access to this fantastic content is going to give you the best chance at climbing, so make sure you check us out using the link in the description below. Getting right into this juicy topic, the first thing that we need to talk about is the play pattern of most one-tricks. You see, most challenger one-tricks are really greedy players, and because they have complete mastery of their champion, they play for themselves. This works for them because they can make the absolute most of this champion. So when they take gold and EXP and all of the resources on the map, they're able to carry with it. Why? Because they make the champion do what other people can't make it do. Those other people include you. Yes, you. I'm looking at you. Just because you saw Adrian Riven go into a 3v3 and last hit every single kill, the only reason he did that is because he knows he can carry with that gold. In low elo solo queue, it's very important to understand that you are not Adrian Riven, so you shouldn't be making super risky plays like he does. This means that a lot of the time, if you're playing in a 3v3, you'd rather have your resources dispersed more evenly across your team, if possible. One-tricks recognize when they can and cannot carry into certain team comps, and they will play according to this. If they play against something that just completely counters their champion, they're going to give resources to other people, and they know this in every single game. A lot of the time, you don't have the same experience on this champion as that one-trick does, so you might not know when it's right for you to take all the resources and when it's right for you to give the resources. It's also a lot easier to notice when your favorite streamer is taking all of the resources and getting really snowballed. It's so much easier to remember the fact that Mr. Adrian Riven went 20-0 in this game, and it's not as easy to remember the time where he went 3-3-20. Both of these games, he's playing in the ideal way to try and win the game, but you might have only taken notice of the game where he got snowballed out of control. Don't allow this bias to change the way that you see the game. You don't want to be last hitting every single kill to try and take everything from your team. In some cases, yes, it will be the play, but in a lot of cases, it will very much so not be the play. Alright, next up is the crazy fights that you see one-tricks pull off. Now this one, again, is very similar to the last point, but you remember all of the crazy fights that you see in highlight reels over the years. If you watch a Riven montage, you're going to see insane plays where Riven 1v5s and pulls off the craziest play. These plays have a lot of draw to them. They're very flashy, they look so cool, and you always want to pull them off in a game. You need to keep in mind that when you see these highlight plays of this champion just absolutely popping off, the players one-tricking this champion have had hundreds of instances where they've decided not to take a fight. They've also had plenty of instances where they've taken that fight and just died without doing anything. Understand that a lot of the time when you're watching a one-trick, first of all, they're playing for content. And second of all, they're playing at a level that you can't comprehend. When you see 3 people pull up on you top lane, it doesn't mean that when you're playing Yasuo, you just dash through the wave as many times as you can and try and get that triple kill. A lot of the time, it's better to just show restraint. There have been so many cases where I've played against a Riven or a Yasuo or Irelia, and they try and do something super flashy, dashing all over the place, and I just shut them down, and it's like, you could have just not taken that fight. You didn't need to take that fight at all. There was no reason to, you just want to be in a highlight reel. If you do end up in a highlight reel, I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool, but a lot of the time, if you're playing to win, you probably should not go for highlight reel plays. Next up, let's talk about matchups. A lot of the time, one-tricks consider certain counter matchups to actually be winnable. And this is because they understand every single matchup at a very deep level. For example, if you look up Renekton counters, you will see that Urgot is one of Renekton's hardest counters, and a lot of people consider this a hard lane to play. But me, having played thousands of games of Renekton and hundreds of games of those against Urgot, I have developed a way to play against Urgot that I'm able to win in most of my games. Does this mean that I recommend that you play Renekton into Urgot? Of course not. There are plenty of other matchups that perform a lot better into Urgot. However, if you are put in this scenario, you should not play the game the way I play the game. Since I consider this matchup a winning matchup for Renekton, and I have a playstyle that I go to every single time I play it, I'm able to win it. But since other people don't have that experience, they don't consider it a winning matchup, and they shouldn't play it the way I play it if they don't understand why I'm doing the things that I do. If you are able to get an explanation as to why certain things are happening, then by all means, play it that way. But a lot of the time, if you're watching a one trick, they don't explain the things that they do. You might see Adrian Riven constantly beating Irelia players, but you might be hopeless against Irelia yourself. You need to know your limits and you need to know how you perform against certain matchups. Remember, you are not whatever one trick you're watching. Alright, next we've got to talk about builds because, oh boy, there are so many people who just blindly copy builds from a one trick and they don't know why. It is not uncommon for one tricks to have unique builds versus other people playing that champion, and this is because they understand the champion at a deeper level, and they're able to put everything together to make this build optimal for them. A lot of the time, when people try to copy this build, however, they don't understand, first of all, why these items are being built or these runes or whatever, and on top of that, they're missing something. The example I want to go back to is my Renekton build. I build Ginsus on Renekton, and I have for a while. The reason why I build Ginsus on Renekton is because it works really well in tandem with all of the armor shred that he has in his kit. It generates more fury for him once you have the Ginsus procced, and it gives you more procs of Blade of the Ruined King. Does this mean that I would recommend that other people take this Ginsus build into their ranked games? No. This build is very, very hard to pilot because your fury is very hard to predict what it's going to do, and you need a lot of experience using this specific build as opposed to other builds to know what your fury is going to look like. If you do something wrong, you're going to use fury on the wrong ability, and then you're pretty much useless. Even I mess up this build sometimes, and I'm the one who came up with it. If I mess up my own build sometimes, then I don't want anyone else building the build. I completely understand the build. I have all of the reasoning as to why I want to go this build in certain games down. I know when to avoid it. I know exactly how my fury is going to pan out, and I still mess it up sometimes. So if somebody who isn't me tries this build, then they're not going to see any success. In fact, other Challenger Renekton players have played this build and they've just straight up said, no, this is trash. I don't know how you win on this. My point is, just because you saw a one trick building something in a lot of their games does not mean you should be building that in a lot of your games. You should stick closer to the meta build until you have more experience and then can make your own decisions. A lot of other one tricks that are really high rated still have trouble adapting to other one tricks builds. And if other challenger players that one trick the same champion can't pull off that build, then how are you going to pull it off? Finally is a topic that doesn't just apply to one tricks. I'm sorry to get serious at the end, but this is a problem, and a lot of the time it does detract from your solo queue experience. Now, the reason why I used Adrian Riven as an example in all of these examples is because he is one of the most positive streamers out there. This guy never flames, he plays in one of the most frustrating regions, and he plays so many games and he just never gets upset. He's always happy, uplifting, positive, just an all-around really good guy. And I think he's a fantastic role model for a lot of people. I would highly recommend him as a streamer if you don't already watch him. Unfortunately, not very many people are like him. Most streamers are rather toxic or at the very least abrasive. They treat their teammates in solo queue really poorly, and I've seen the community picking up on this over the years. I know that I'm guilty of toxicity myself sometimes too. Nobody's perfect, but I think the community has generally come to the conclusion that toxicity is cool or it's okay to be toxic. It's important to remember that everyone that you're playing with is a human being, and there's absolutely no reason to exhibit toxicity towards one another. I know that League of Legends is a release for a lot of people and that it's a good stress reliever, or they just do it on their free time when they're stressed about other things. But I want people to remember that everyone else enjoys this game as well, and you don't want to be impeding that. It's also just completely non-productive to just be toxic towards other people. It's going to make them want to be toxic towards you instead. It's going to be detrimental for your games. Nobody's going to want to play. You're more likely to FF, you're more likely to lose, you're more likely to feed. It's just bad all around. If you think that you're a player that has fallen prey to this, you watch a lot of toxic streamers, and you pick up on some of their bad habits, then I would highly recommend hanging around the positive communities out there. You've got people like Quantum Physics, Adrian Sierra, you've got Voxbox. All of these players are really positive and they do a good job of not flaming and maintaining really good mental. And I think it goes to show how important that is for solo queue. You want to avoid being that toxic Shaco or Kane one trick that just streams to thousands of people on Twitch. Instead, you want to be that uplifting Riven player, right? The one that breaks the stereotype of all Riven players are toxic. It's going to give you a better chance of winning. It's going to make you enjoy your games more, and this might sound crazy, but you might make a friend. If you guys have a streamer who's been a really positive influence in your life, and they're positive in game all the time, they don't succumb to all this toxicity, then let us know who they are in a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you're interested in more of our content, you can check out our website, GameLeap.com. Over there, we've got hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We've got courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther. I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.